All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's get her going here. Start me off. Where to bid to go? Have it like $1,000. Open it up.
How to take possession of a tax property to resell. Welcome back. Now, most newcomers at the county tax defaulted auctions, they have very little experience at purchasing and reselling. Now, some people get very good at purchasing, but they struggle with the reselling part of it. So most people have a vision they're going to make this happen, and they want it to happen quickly, but it really doesn't happen quickly. So let's see if we can help you out with that a little bit. What we're really going to talk about is taking possession. That's the easy part, and then let's see if we can get it sold. Okay, so it doesn't necessarily happen quickly because most auction buyers don't have a plan to sell. So I'm going to try and cover that a little bit today and see if we can speed up that process and give you a little insight so you can move quickly and be able to sell. So the official title is going to come from the tax collector and the treasurer, and they're going to pass on a deed to you. So once you have the deed either recorded at the county records or in your hand, well, then you can go ahead and start thinking about selling it. Now, what kind of deed are you going to get? You're probably going to get a commissioner's deed. You might get a treasurer's deed. You might get a tax collector's deed. More than likely, it's just a quitclaim deed. All right, so I'm not going to go into quitclaims on this particular video, but I have on other ones, so you really should learn what a quitclaim deed is, okay? All right, so now what do we want to do? We've got the deed, so we want to sell it. So the short answer is sell it. Well, that's going to take a little insight and a little guidelines. Okay, now understanding the importance of marketing a property is probably the biggest problem that most entrepreneurs have. So they blunder along waiting for the property to get sold, and it doesn't get sold. So you're really going to have to do something. So this simple blunder can make the difference between a very successful deal and a failure, and not only for that property, for being in the business. So the people that learn how to sell are the ones that are going to make the money. So you must know who your buyer is going to be. You have to know about pricing, and I've designed the system so pricing works. In other words, we buy it low at the auction, tax defaulted auction. We don't try to get retail, so we buy low and we sell low. So unfortunately, most sellers fail to figure out what the clients really want, and they don't take enough action to make sure it's going to happen. Now, why don't they do that? I don't know, but they're not assertive sellers. If you're going to be assertive in any part of the business, this is the part to do it. So here's the solution. You want to succeed? You need to spend your money on marketing and media. Let me say again. Spend your money on marketing and media. Now, what am I talking about media? You want to put the property and try to sell it on eBay, Zillow, multiple listing, Trulia, Craigslist, Facebook Marketplace. You want to do it on all of those systems simultaneously. And you want to put lots of ugly signs out there on the street. You want to use every electronic site that you can find to sell the property. The people that do that are assertive marketers are the ones that sell. They sell relatively quickly, and now they can go back to the marketplace and make some money. Now, newspaper advertising still works. Real estate clubs work because who belongs to the real estate club? Those are all bargain hunters. So they'd like to know about your property. So you need to take action to get to the real estate club, let them know you have a property for sale. Whatever it takes, you've got to know what you're doing. You can't just wait for this property to sell. You need to know the market, you need to know the competition, and you need to know this process. Now, all the things I just gave you, you need to keep repeating those and go back and watch again, because you can't just put a sign and wait for that property to sell. It's not going to happen. All right, now, so throughout this video, I'm going to show you from time to time interesting case histories that actually work. And they're all based on previous experience and my students. Now, people don't have to have a lot of money to get into this business. But what you do need to learn how to do is you need to learn how to build wealth. Now, how are you going to build wealth? Well, you can work for someone else. That's okay. Nothing wrong with that. That's what most people do. So there's lots of ways to make money, but you need to think about doing things yourself if you're going to make money. So having a constant flow of income is very important. So how do we get a constant flow of income? Well, I teach people when you're going to sell these properties, you might want to think about an installment sale. Not only can you raise the price and get more money, but you can get checks over a period of time. Now, the tax lien and deed business is such that you could buy one property and it would be enough, you could make enough profit on that property to pay your house payments, to make your car payments. And what you did is you bought it for pennies on the dollar and you sold it for enough profit so that you're making a lot of payments on a regular basis. All right, now many of the students that develop income streams do very, very well because they'll do one property, then another property. I've had students that have done as many as 60 properties over a period of 6 years. So you can think if they're selling those with contracts of sale, they're accepting installment payments. How would you like to have installment payments coming in on 3 properties or 5 properties? Or can you imagine having it on 60 properties? So what people basically do is they sell the property with a contract of sale. In other words, that contract is nothing more than an IOU. In other words, the person that you're selling to owes you the money and they have to pay it to you on a monthly basis. Nothing wrong with that. That system works. It's worked for hundreds of years. And throughout the United States, that's how a lot of the farm and agricultural properties have been sold for years. Okay, it's not a mortgage. It's a contract for sale. And within that contract, you can also have payments. And when you have payments, that's nothing more than an installment sale. All right, so it's going to be up to you. You can be a professional in business and earning money, or you can work for someone else and get checks and work for trade dollars for time. It's going to be up to you. But over a period of time, if you can get installment sales working for you, you're going to be able to build up a nice net worth, and pretty quick you won't have to work. All right, so you're not probably going to get wealthy working 9 to 5. You'll do okay, but it would be better if you got other income coming in. So if you have income streams that you don't have to depend on, then you can take a week or 2 off, and you can travel when you want. You need income streams to do all that. So normal people don't have that choice because the government says you have to work 40 hours a week and you can't save up time, you can't do whatever. And then the employer says, oh no, we need you here certain hours. You only can have certain vacations. Well, that's okay if you want to work that way. It's not a negative situation, but a more positive one would be what you want to work on, and that would be a much better situation. All right, so what are we going to do with these tax defaulted properties? What we really want to do is we want to make enough money to be able to make the property payments on our own property, to make our car payments, and to have money to go on those trips. Obviously, the best way to do that is have your own business or have a business where you could buy something and resell it like we do with these tax defaulted property. Now, don't get me wrong. You're going to be a successful entrepreneur in this business, but I never said that it's going to be a piece of cake, that it's going to be easy. This is going to take time and money to learn, but once you learn it, you can do it for the rest of your life. So I'm going to talk about a couple now from Wisconsin. All right, now this couple's a married couple. They're both senior citizens, and they attended the tax defaulted training that we give. All right, now after they finished and sort of graduated, they decided they wanted to buy their first property. So they traveled over to Michigan to buy a property. All right, now the first auction they went to, they just wanted to keep it down and get as smallest property as possible because they wanted to learn and go through the step-by-step process because now they weren't in class, they're going to have to put up real money. So they found a livable home at the auction. It was snowing, and sure enough, the auctioneer had a property for $55,000 valued by the tax collector. All right, but they didn't have to pay that for it. They bought the property for only $8,000 in a competitive auction. They paid less than 20 cents on the dollar, and they bought it directly from the treasurer. And guess what? The treasurer deleted the mortgage or the deed of trust, whichever's on the property. They deleted it. So now they had a property free and clear for $8,000. Was it perfect? No. These properties are used and abused. Now, some of them are junk, so don't buy the junk. But many of the properties can be just cleaned up and touched up, and you can sell them right away. So basically, they bought a property for $8,000, and then they proceeded to clean it up. All right, now they're going to want to sell this property. So they made sure they cleaned it up before they did that. So they started a cleanup process, and they only spent about $4,000 doing that. But then simultaneously, they started advertising the property on every electronic site they could find. They put signs on the front. They also used all the steps that we had talked about. Craigslist, multiple listing system, used Trulia, they used Zillow. They ended up selling the property on Facebook Marketplace, and they did okay. All right, now it was a tax-assessed value of $55,000, but they used my system. They bought it low, so now they're going to sell it low. So the tax-assessed value, as I said, is $55,000. The first offer they got was at $35,000. So what did they do? Well, they went ahead and accepted that offer for $35,000. Well, they didn't feel too bad at all because they were selling at $35,000, but what they had invested was $8,000 to buy it and another $4,000 to fix it up and clean it up. All right, so now they're going to sell it, so they had $12,000 in it. So you take the $12,000 from the $35,000, and what have they made? They made themselves $23,000 And they did this all during the holidays. Between Thanksgiving and Christmas, they made themselves $23,000. Now, they were willing to use a contract of sale. So let's think about what they've done here. First of all, they went to the auction, bought a property for less than 20 cents on the dollar. That was good. Secondly, they're going to resell it right away. So they put signs on it, start advertising it. They get their first offer. They're going to make $20,000, $23,000 because they sold it. They agreed to sell it, and they agreed to take installment payments. Well, the installment payments, they're going to charge interest on that. So let's review all this. Number one, $55,000 was the value of the property. They bought it for $8,000. They spent another $4,000. Now they have $12,000. They're all in at $12,000. They sold it for $35,000. Now they've made $23,000 in profit. What's wrong with that? Well, they plussed it because they did a contract of sale, and they're going to accept payments of $400 a month. That was another $15,000 in interest. Now they have made $38,000 total. $23,000 on the profit on the property and another $15,000 on the interest. Folks, $38,000. And they only had $12,000 invested. How many times would you like to do that in your life? Folks, are they going to be able to make their house payments if they had them? Are they going to be able to make car payments if they have them? Are they going to be able to go on any vacation if they want to? What's the point here? The point is you don't need a lot of money to get in this business, and anybody could do it. All right, now all 67 counties in the state of Michigan have at least one auction every year. You can attend those auctions and do the same thing. This is working in over 3,000 counties, more than 3,000 counties across the United States. Now, I've only given you a teeny tiny example of the spectacular kind of earnings that a person could make on a tax defaulted property. Folks, investing $12,000 and ending up with $38,000 in profit is one heck of a lot of money. All right, now I'm going to run out of time. Before I go, I want you to take a quick look at this map. You see those little white circles? That's how many auctions are taking place within that state in the next 90 days. This calendar updates every single day. I'm here today to show you how to make money. To do that, I'm going to show you briefly that there are thousands of tax defaulted real estate properties across the 3,000 plus counties in the United States. This is quite interesting. You're looking at the Ted Thomas Magic Interactive Map and Auction Calendar. It changes every day. Now, I created the calendar and the map so I would know how many auctions are taking place every day in the United States. Now I can show the little guy how to make money. Most importantly, I created this system so I could have an auction list for each auction 24/7. Now, folks, the small population counties, they're going to have dozens of these properties to sell, sometimes hundreds. But the large population counties are going to have hundreds and maybe even thousands. I've gone to auctions where there was over 2,000 properties at the auction, tax defaulted, that they were selling. So you're kind of getting the idea. So, folks, ask yourself this question. How would you feel if you knew you could learn this from this material and make yourself $25,000 or $50,000 annually? These people made $38,000 on one deal. What if you could make $25,000 or $50,000? Would that change your life a little bit? I bet it would. All right, so I'm going to move on because I'm running out of time. Always look at the property because you don't know what happened. If there was a hurricane or a fire or there was some damage to the property, you don't want to buy that property because once you buy it at an auction, you'll own it. Don't forget, request your free auction list right below me.